Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. And welcome to today's HDI webcast, Spotlight on Enterprise Service Management. Today's webinar is brought to you by Heat Software. I'm Roy Atkinson, and I'll be your moderator today, as well as the speaker for this webinar. I may also be serving popcorn and snacks during the intermission, which there won't be. Just a few announcements before we begin. If you experience any difficulty in the webinar itself, you can get help by clicking on the green question mark at the bottom of your screen. You can participate in the Q&A by asking questions at any time during the webcast. We'll have Q&A at the end of the featured presentation. Click on the red QA button and just type your question into the Ask a Question text area below the video window, and then click the Submit button. Easy as pie. At this time, we recommend that you disable any pop-up blockers because there will be pop-up windows as we go through. To chat with others who are attending today, click on the group chat button at the bottom right of your screen. We love having you exchange ideas during the webinar. It's great to have some peer conversation going, so please take advantage of that feature. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. You may also download a copy of the slides by clicking on the Download Slide button located below the presentation window. So we usually get a couple of questions about that. Just note that you can download a copy of the presentation simply by using that button. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit the Help Guide by clicking on the Help link below the media player. In addition, you can contact the Technical Support Helpline, which is also located in the Webcast Help Guide. And to answer another frequently asked question, today's webinar will be available on demand after about 24 hours, and you'll receive an email reminder to let you know that it is available. Okay? Easy peasy. To contact HDI on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or at hdiconnect.com, just go there and have a conversation. We'd love to have you exchange ideas with us. You can read a blog, ask a question, or find a solution on hdiconnect.com. That's our little social area. Lots of great blogs there. Before we get started, I'd like to get an idea of the current status of service management in your organizations. So please take a moment to answer the following question. Is your organization using service management principles and tools outside of IT? And you can choose, yes, we are doing this, we are planning to do this, or we have no plans to do this. So make your selections, and I look forward to seeing what's the status of IT service management and service management outside of IT in your organization. Are you doing it outside of IT? Are you planning to do it? Or don't you have any plans to do it? Okay. To just give you a few more seconds to answer the question. All right, let's take a peek at what your responses are. So what we see is that about 25% of you are doing this, about 40% are planning on it, and about 34% are not planning to do it or have no plans to do it. And that's more or less a reflection of some statistics I will show you during the presentation on some research that we recently did from HDI about using service management outside of IT. Thanks for responding. I'm going to move along here and introduce you to Kevin J. Smith, who's going to represent Heat Software today. And he's the VP and General Manager of Service Management Business Unit at Heat. And Kevin, take it away.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Roy. And on behalf of Heat Software, we're very pleased to sponsor the webcast today and to take a closer look at something we all care a lot about, which is enterprise service management. We are fortunate to work very closely with many leading organizations, and I'll provide just a few comments to get us started that are based on the challenges these organizations are facing today and what we're hearing from these clients and the challenges and opportunities they're expecting in the months and the years ahead. So first, we're seeing this very rapid acceleration in the evolution of service. So service management and enterprise service management have been evolving for some time, but we've seen this acceleration in the years of 2014, 2015, and some of the factors that are shaping that, and this is really, I think, indicative of what's happening in the market, is service quality has always been something that a core team has cared about, but it's become something that everybody is focusing on across the business. Businesses and organizations are focused on taking care of their clients, and service quality has become paramount in doing that. And now the interesting thing is as organizations are going through this evolution, they're saying, okay, who has tools that can help us do this? We can't do it manually. We can't do it on our own. So as it turns out, IT has mature tools that are proven in supporting service delivery and service management, and now they're turning to the business and being able to help. They're in a unique position in having perfected their craft over the past 1 to 2 decades, and so as a result of that, the business turning to IT is emerging as a leader. And the terminology is changing, certainly, but what we're seeing is the core essence of service delivery and enterprise service management is the same as when we started talking about it 30 years ago. So good practices are spreading throughout the business. We've called this many things. We've called it best practices. We've moderated that and calling it good practices, but standards like ITIL, like ISO, COBIT, Sarbanes-Oxley, and many more that don't even have a name yet are starting to shape the business. And as this mindset is taking hold in the business, we recognize that we've got to be faster. We've got to be faster. We've got to be better. We have to find a way to do this in a more cost-optimal way. So this mantra that we show here is something that the business is going to be rallying around for some time. Now, I wanted to touch on automation because automation is a great vehicle for improving service delivery, and it's beyond the scope of today's call, but I wanted to touch on a few building blocks that are a great place to start when we're looking at automation, again, as a way to improve service delivery, and back to this rallying cry of faster, better, cheaper. We've seen this interesting reshaping of the incident. If you look at one of the essential building blocks of how we do service delivery, you may call it a ticket. You may call it an incident. More and more we're calling it a service request because a service request is a very versatile way to describe somebody needs something from the business, and then the service delivery team rallies to provide that. So this is where we begin. And then as a further extension to that, we're saying, hey, people want immediate gratification. They want an experience that's personal and fast. And so we're looking to self-service. Self-service is essentially an on 24/7, on all the time, serve me anywhere and anytime model for service requests. And so self-service, we're saying, is a fast-growing element of service delivery and a critical building block for service automation because it's so convenient. It's so fast. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, the third item here, is just knowledge. How do we capture knowledge? How do we make everybody look better in doing their job? How do we capture these jewels of wisdom as we're performing service delivery and as we're automating service management and sharing this not just internally with IT but across the business to help everybody do their job better and ultimately getting it all the way out to the clients that we serve? So one thing that we do at Heat Software is provide the applications and the tools to help organizations do this, to help bring service delivery and enterprise service management to life. And we do this in a way where we can deliver and deploy these applications in the cloud or on-premise because businesses' needs are very different. They continue to evolve. Even businesses that are committed to one deployment model today, for example, running in the cloud, that might change in the future because we just don't know what challenges we'll face in the market or what happens in the business in the future. But things like a CMDB and the ability to discover assets and the ability to deliver IT good practices and IT best practices and deliver a service catalog and have an awesome workflow designer, all this is essential. And so whatever solution you're leveraging in your business, make sure it has these critical elements that will allow you to be successful. in delivering service that will allow you to be successful in looking at a model for enterprise service management and ultimately giving your employees the power they need to serve your clients their very best every day. And then finally, I wanted to take just a few seconds to look at what is likely to lie ahead for us. So increasingly, I think we'll continue to see on this journey, and it really is a journey that we've embarked upon together for enterprise service management, is increasingly it will be a business-wide focus. This is now and forevermore not just for IT. Service management is for the business, and it's an incredible strategic driver. It's a real leverage point for the business in performing better and better serving clients and creating really ultimately a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Applications are going to be optimized for a mobile workforce. More and more of the workforce is in the field. The workforce is in an airport. It's in a hotel. It's with a client. It's in field offices. And we have to have tools and technology and applications that allow the mobile workforce to work at their very best every day with no limitations. I mentioned this briefly here. Roy will touch on it later, I would imagine, and that is the consumerization of IT, the personalization of IT is reshaping everything. Our expectations are different. We want everything to look good. We want it fast. We want it now. We want it just for me. We want this experience to remember who I am. All these things, all these elements are coming together, and the winners are everybody. The winners are us as those of us that are IT professionals and delivering service management to the business. The winners are our employees in whatever you do in your organization and serving your clients, and ultimately the winner is the client because we're going to do a better job of delivering whatever our service or our product is to our client. And this theme of fast and personal is going to continue to pervade everything that we do because, again, ultimately what it does is it creates a better, reaching all the way out to our clients, creates a better experience for the client, which allows us to perform better as a business. And enterprise service management isn't the focus. It is rather a key way to deliver this great experience and a key engine to drive the business to better serve our clients. So just a few thoughts, and with that, I will turn it back over to you, Roy, for the start of our main presentation.
Thanks, Kevin. Really good points there, and I will touch on a lot of what you had to say. So it'll be interesting to see how we overlap. If you don't know me, my name is Roy Atkinson. I am the Senior Writer Analyst at HDI, which means that I assist with some industry knowledge and work with other writers to produce content for Support World, HDI Connect blogs, and so forth. I'm happy to meet you as I go out to the different HDI chapters and speak at conferences and so forth. So it's great to have you here today. A lot of what I'm going to say today is based on HDI Research, which is terrific. We have some of the best research in the industry, so happy to share some of it with you if you haven't already seen it. This is just a little box that I captured from one of our reports, using IT service management principles outside of IT as an opportunity for IT to lead and be a trusted advisor. For some of the reasons that Kevin mentioned, we have been at this for a long time. IT has been learning about service management and practicing ITSM in whatever form, whether it's ITIL, which is the most widespread, or some other framework that's being followed. And so IT has the opportunity here to lead other parts of the business as they embark on their service management journey as well. So it's a great opportunity for support and for IT in general to show value to the business. So let's talk about what we mean by using IT service management principles outside of IT. First of all, service-oriented view. So viewing everything as a service, right? We talk about lots of things as a service when we talk about IT, and taking a service view of the way things happen within the business. And also that can, these major areas that, let's say, ITIL covers, service strategy, design, operations, service delivery, of course, a big part of what we do in support, transition, knowledge management, which becomes exceedingly important, and Kevin touched on that, and having a basic understanding of governance, and continual service improvement. So you applying all of those principles to services across the business, no matter where they happen and what departments they happen in. And we'll talk about some of those that are on the forefront of adopting service management principles as we go ahead. I wanted to take a quick look at one of the reasons why some of the departments are adopting this rather quickly, and some of the things that are really, really similar. Now let's look at it from just a support standpoint. That's where most of us live. And so I'm going to look at it just from that, and really bare bones essentially. I'm going to take a very high-level view of this. You have a request or an incident, and as Kevin mentioned, request is becoming a more common term now, but we divide between requests and incidents within the IT world. And then we have some workflow, some magic that happens to produce a resolution. Really very, very basic processes that happen there. A request or incident comes in, something happens, and a resolution is produced for the customer. And that can happen in a lot of different areas in the business if you think about it, and we're going to look at several of those as we go through today. So I'm going to just break that open a little bit here in the next slide. Service request, somebody needs a service or has a question. An incident we're familiar with, it's something is broken or interrupted. And then work gets done, and there's tasks in a workflow. If you're doing service management seriously, generally you have these tasks that form the workflow. Some of them may be automated within your service management tool currently, and we'll talk more about automation a little bit later on. And then there's a resolution that the customer verifies, and the record is closed. And I will just reiterate one of my little mantras, which is it's not resolved until the customer says it's resolved. So it's important to verify the fact that it is now working for the customer. No matter what type of service management we're doing, if it's not working for the customer, it's not working. Okay? And so we have a beginning state in a lot of businesses, which is that IT is using IT service management processes and tools. We're familiar with those. But then we have customer service using a CRM system or something else. We have facilities using their own ticketing system. We have HR using a case management system. If we have a training unit in the business, they're using some type of planning and scheduling software. We have financial services using spreadsheets for sure, and an ERP system of some kind. And so all these different units within a business are using different tools and very likely have their own proprietary processes by which they do things. And we'll come back to this as a reference point later on when we talk about doing enterprise service management. It's really important to recognize that there are proprietary differences there. And so there's a couple of things we have to think about as we start to do service management on a wider basis. So this is confusing in a lot of ways. Think of it from the customer standpoint, the end user standpoint. So if I go to the IT portal, self-service portal, do I have access to something from customer service if I need to contact them? Do I have access to facilities? How do I report that my office chair is squeaking versus how do I report a problem with my computer? Those are probably right now, if you're not doing enterprise service management and don't have a good widespread tool, they're probably very different things. And it's confusing to customers to first figure out where they're supposed to go to initiate a request and then be able to phrase that request in a way that people on the other side understand. So when we start looking at why we might want to think about enterprise service management, this is a primary one because we are in service to the customer and we need to think about what is easy and best for them. If it's apparent and if it's part of your culture to go to one place to report an issue with something or to request a service from somebody, that makes life a lot easier from the customer perspective. And as Kevin mentioned, consumerization is not just the use of consumer-level products in the enterprise. It's not just your iPhone or Android phone. It's not just your tablet. It's not just bringing your own laptop. It's a lot of more than that. It's an approach to expecting services and expecting them to be delivered easily in a Google or Apple-like fashion. Okay, so consumerization is a very broad topic, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about it in the years to come. So let's take a look at the results I mentioned earlier from some HDI research, which pretty much parallels the input that you folks had today. About 25% of you said you have adopted some service management in non-IT areas, and by golly, in this research that we did with ITSM USA, 25% have already adopted enterprise service management. About another 25%, a little more than that, are currently or planning to adopt in non-IT areas, and about half, a little less than half, have no plans to adopt. Now, I noticed that today, among the audience, that percentage was lower. It was a little over 40%. So I think that this is the light is coming on, and organizations are realizing that there's an advantage to doing this, and certainly there can be, as I mentioned, some advantages to IT to take the leadership and help this change occur. So let's see what's going on. Where are the service management principles being adopted? And customer service and support, about 74% of that 25%, so about 18 and change percent of all organizations, a little less than 1/5, are adopting service management principles in customer service and support, meaning your external-facing customer service. In facilities, it's about 38%, human resources, training, financial services, and you can see the percentages there. And so these are the big areas that are adopting service management principles along the lines of IT service management. And it doesn't have to be, ITIL, although according to our research, that is the most utilized framework for enterprise service management. And that was a little bit surprising because it was really originally designed and written for IT, but there's enough applicable there that other areas of the business are finding value in it. And they also realize that IT has a heck of a lot of experience with ITIL and probably a bunch of people who are at least foundation certified in ITIL and can help them spread the good word about how service management works. So those are the service management principles. Now let's take a look at the solutions, the tools. And again, customer service and support is the big adopter of service management principles and tools, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you think back to it, the three basic areas of the process that I talked about, an incident or request comes in, some work happens, and a solution is produced. And customer service and support is certainly an area where that is true. A customer calls up, they have an issue or a problem, or they need something, they need a part for their broken widget, or they have a problem with their widget, it's defective, they need to know how to return it. So it's a very similar set of steps that happens, especially in customer service and support. Facilities also, very similar steps. Something is reported broken, somebody goes to fix it, it's fixed. And there will be more differences when we get to places like HR, when we get into financial services and training primarily answering requests for specific types of training or trying to schedule training. So that's going to be a little bit different, but unification of the tool is a big deal, and these are areas where the tools are being utilized. So now I'm going to go on to, we're going to have another poll question here. I'm going to go ahead and push that out to you. And your organization's service management solution is currently on premises. It's in your own data center. Is it in the cloud, delivered over the internet, or SaaS, if you want to call it that, however you like to term it? Or you don't have a service management solution. You're using more of a ticketing solution, a homegrown database solution, something like that. So I'll give you a little bit of time to answer that, and then we'll move on. on-premises, in the data center, in the cloud, next to the cloud, parked near the cloud, above the cloud, below the cloud, somewhere. Or you don't have a service management solution. So let's take a look at what your responses are now. And let's look at what we see. So, very interesting responses here. About 75% of you say that your solution is on premises. It's in your own data center. Very interesting to see that much of a group. In the cloud, only about 16.5% of you, and just over 8% don't have a service management solution yet. So part of the reason you're here today might be to think about whether or not you want to get one. So that's a good reason to be here. These are a little different from some responses that we've gotten recently in terms of adoption of cloud solutions, which tend to be, in the overall market, that tends to be a little bit more. And it's an increasing demographic. But there you are, 75% of you, it's in your data center. So let's look at some of the reasons people told us that they prefer that as opposed to cloud solutions. So here, and it's a little hard to see. It might be a little hard to see on your screen, but you can download the slides and you can take a closer look. On this particular batch, this is the top 10 reasons organizations choose on-premises solutions. So for the 75% of you, here's what our industry survey told us were the reasons that you chose to do that. Number one, data security. You felt that you could secure the data better than somebody else, somewhere else remotely located across the net. Number two reason, cost. Number three, customization, the ability to customize it or having a customized solution already that you could update. Availability of the tool. So you wanted to make sure that it was available as much as possible and you felt that your data center could do it better. Number five is user experience, and that, as we were talking about, is increasingly important. That's simply the customer experience, the user experience. How does your customer think about or feel about their interaction with the tool? If they interact with self-service, if they interact with a portal where they can submit their own tickets, and certainly the user experience of the people who are in the tool all the time, which is folks in the support center. Number six is out-of-the-box capability, so a robust set of possibilities for the use of the tool. Number seven is configuration, meaning the ability to get in there and get it set up. And number eight, the ability to use in business areas outside of IT. So that's the number 8 out of the top 10. It's the ability to use it in areas outside of IT. So it's in the top 10 right away. Ease of implementation. And number 10, analyst reports. So, Gartner, Forrester, or another analyst company that your organization might use said this is a good bet. It's a good tool. And then now, next to that, I'm going to show you the top 10 reasons why people said they chose SaaS solutions, solutions that are delivered across a network. Number one, ease of updates and versions. Not having to worry about somebody going into the server, shutting the server down, or moving to a backup and updating a version. It just kind of happens in the background. Number two, ease of implementation. Basically turning on the spigot and having the solution available. Number three, availability, having it constantly there when you need it. Number four, cost. A little bit lower on the cost side for the SaaS answers as opposed to the on-premises answers. Number five, out-of-the-box capabilities, again, so that's high on the list for both sides of the equation. User experience, again, very important. How do customers perceive it? How do the people who are in the tool all the time perceive it? Is it difficult to use? Is it easy to use? Is it understandable? Ability to use in business areas outside of IT, a tiny bit higher on the folks who are using SaaS solutions currently. Customization of the tool is a little bit lower. It was number 3 on the on-premises side. It's number 8 here. And number 9, system admin time, okay, which is a saving that does not appear on the left-hand side of the screen, but it does appear on the right-hand side. So if it's delivered SaaS, you don't need generally don't need the system administrators to go in and handle the servers on which your solution is installed. And the number 10 is something that Kevin mentioned, mobile applications. The ability to use the solution on mobile devices, and generally that's native. It comes with the tool. So very interesting things to look at, and I urge you to download the slides and take a look at that. And that comes from some research that we did right at the end of 2014. So now let's look at some of the benefits of an enterprise service management approach. One of which is to use existing tools or replacement tools with expanded capabilities. So let's say that right now you're using a software as a service tool, a cloud-delivered tool that has a certain set of modules that come with. You can turn things on or off depending on what the capabilities of the tool are. Maybe you can adapt the tool simply by paying a little more and getting additional modules. Or you can make requests of the solution provider. So existing tools, if they're good, robust service management tools, can do the job, or replacement tools with expanded capabilities. So some of you might be considering an upgrade to a tool with extended service management capability that will be more or less copacetic to use in areas that we've discussed, like customer service, like HR. And then what we have is the ability to simplify access to services, as I mentioned, going to a single self-service portal that can help you with a problem or a request to IT, to HR, to facilities. If all of those things are connected in the same place, it's easy for me to remember where to go, and it's easy for me to get there. It's easy for me to submit that request. And then also, as Kevin mentioned, there's process automation is possible if you have a unified tool across the business, and a lot of times things will cross business unit lines. Let's take a case in onboarding. So there's a lot of cooperation that generally happens between IT and HR to get that to happen. HR does its bit to get somebody hired and fulfill the requirements that they have to do when they bring the person on board, but then IT needs to provide them the tools that they need to get their job done. And so generally somebody needs to file a request with IT to get their laptop or desktop provided and whatever else they need. Make sure that if they have any special needs like special access because they have limited vision or hearing, if they're left-handed as opposed to right-handed and they need a different type of mouse, something like that. There's automation that can happen between those two business units that can save a substantial amount of time and eliminate a lot of the possibility of human error simply because nobody's got to record all of those different things and make sure that somebody else gets the message. It's already in the tool. It's automatically transferred because a workflow has been set up that makes it happen. So that automation can be very helpful and also speedy. So that's some of the reasons that you might want to think about doing this. And this is not to be missed. People, process, technology, we talk about them all the time. Well, we've talked about the process and we've talked about the technology. We haven't much talked about the people yet, but this is very often where businesses run into trouble trying to get processes changed or adopted. It's exceedingly important that the people part of the equation is not ignored. You really need to pay attention to the needs of the people involved, and anything involving change where there's a group of people involves organizational change, and that's a topic near and dear to my heart, and I won't go into it too much now, but I urge you not to forget that that is a fundamental part of this equation. You can decide that you want to use enterprise service management in all the different departments. You can get high-level buy-in so that you can cross those lines of business units. But if you don't properly adapt the behavior of the people in those different business units and make sure that they understand the importance of doing things in new ways, then it's likely that you're going to run into some deep weeds. So don't forget the people part. Okay? Again, going back to service automation, and it comes directly out of what I was just saying. If there's not the opportunity for people to fail doing a part of the process, then there's not the opportunity for failure in the larger process. So service automation can really help you. And that, by the way, that picture is one of the Tesla plants. It's completely robotic. As you can see, there's nobody there. Service automation decreases the time spent, and speed is important, increasingly so in business now. It is very important for businesses to have a high, what's known as velocity. The ability to innovate and change is increasingly important. So decreasing time spent on routine, repetitive tasks is huge. And who wants to spend time on routine, repetitive tasks anyway? Resetting passwords is not a challenge, as you well know. Decreases or eliminates human error and increases the value delivered. Now, that's the other part of the equation, is that if you're not doing those repetitive tasks, if you automate that stuff and get it out of your human workflow, not only are you decreasing errors, but you're also increasing the value. You're taking advantage of the people that you have to do a little bit higher level work. So to focus more on projects, to focus more on process improvements, to focus more on increasing the value of the services delivered to every business unit that's involved. And so automating your services is a really good idea. And automation seems a little bit scary, but if you think about it, it allows people to concentrate on the most challenging parts of their tasks and also allows them to concentrate on things that move forward. So rather than repeating, if you just reset passwords all day, you're not accomplishing anything of value, really. You're helping people to get back to work, and that's certainly a huge part of what support does, but you're not moving forward. And so you're not increasing value. To increase value, you really need to move forward, to plan ahead, to increase the velocity of current IT projects, for example, deliver things faster, deliver things better and more accurately. So don't be afraid of automation. Realize that it can, in fact, help you. And here's where I'll talk a little bit about some differences in the business areas. Now, I mentioned that customer service was one of the primary areas in which service management principles and tools were being adopted. And as I mentioned, it is a very similar process overall to what happens in IT support, which is somebody calls or sends an email or submits a form that either they have something broken that needs to get fixed or replaced, or something else is needed, a service request, or they have a question, which is also a service request in this strict terminology. But once the workflow starts, there can be some significant differences. Let's take a look at one of those. Within IT support, generally, when we talk about escalation, one of the prime reasons for escalation is technical. Somebody has a technical skill that's not represented at the front line, or somebody needs to go visit the customer, or somebody needs to contact the vendor and get some particular information in order to resolve the issue. So that may be the case in IT. But when you talk about escalation in terms of customer service, generally what you're talking about is a problem in the interaction between customer service and the customer. For example, I can't get what I want. I can't get the answer at the front line. I need to get a supervisor on the phone in order to help me, or to get approval to circumvent a policy that's preventing me from getting a refund because I didn't have my receipt. Those kinds of things. So escalation is different. And so when you're working with the different areas of the business, you need to bear in mind that they have that terminology that may be different from yours. They have processes that are different from yours in IT support. And you need to be careful that you differentiate among them as you adapt the processes into different areas. And adapting is, it's a word I've used several times during this webinar, and it's a key idea within service management. That there was a great quote in a Facebook group called Back to ITSM. It's Back to IT Service Management, which a bunch of people from around the globe talk about IT service management issues. And it was a great quote from Kirsty McGowan. She said that she actually heard from a customer, "We bought ITIL and it didn't work." As if ITIL were a tool that you could install, like putting a wrench on a bolt, something like that. It didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work because you weren't thinking about the processes involved and taking care that the details were worked out and that the people were aligned with the processes. So there are significant differences, and be careful when you're moving into different areas that you are careful to adapt the terminology and the tool to get the job done for that particular area. And what I mean by shoehorning is that just trying to squeeze a particular set of processes into a tool, or trying to change the process in such a way that it makes it more difficult for the people who do the job. Many times over the years I've seen examples where an ERP deployment failed for certain areas of the business, and what they did was they circumvented the ERP system and invented a workflow that was outside the ERP system, and then had to try to capture the results of that to go back into the ERP system. And that's because their particular flow of work was not accurately represented in the ERP tool, so they just avoided the ERP tool. And that's what's going to happen if you're not careful. So make sure that the tool does what you need it to do, that you can adapt it to how it needs. You can get a feed from other tools to bring data in, whatever you need to do, but just make sure it fits. Okay? So let's talk about the overall things that we've mentioned today. IT can take a leadership role because it has experience in this area. Service management has been around in IT for a very long time, and it will continue to be around for a long time. The frameworks are changing. Things are rapidly changing within the business, and one of the prime drivers of that is consumerization. But IT still knows what it's doing in terms of service management, and this is an opportunity to deliver value to the business by helping other areas get into service management and adapt properly both the principles and the tools. IT can lead the expansion of service management as a trusted advisor. So what a great thing to be. And I think that's a popular combination of words now, and it's going to become increasingly important. And I mentioned that right at the top. I took that quote box right out of one of our research reports. IT can lead as a trusted advisor. We have, believe it or not, and in a lot of cases, IT has the trust of the business. And this whole movement of enterprise service management is an indication of the fact that despite a lot of yelling and screaming across the battle lines, as it were, businesses do trust IT at least as far as knowing what they're doing in service management. So time to get out there and lead as a trusted advisor. And the right tools can unify the customer experience. Remember, I mentioned that a couple of times. The customer experience, again, something that's being increasingly mentioned. Why? Because customers are more important now than they ever were. Why? Because options are more available than they have ever been. If I don't like what my IT department tells me, I can go get a solution with my magic credit card. I can wind up a couple of servers at Amazon or someplace else and get exactly what I need from another source without waiting for IT. Customer experience is increasingly important. And so try to unify that, make it easier for people to know where to go and to accomplish what they need to accomplish. Common access. Go to the same place for your squeaky chair or your broken computer. It's a thing of beauty. Automate repetitive tasks for all the reasons that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. It speeds things up. It eliminates human error. And it gets that repetitive work off your plate so you don't have to worry about it doing the same thing over and over again. You can actually accomplish new work, planning new things, make those improvements you never seem to get to if you get those repetitive tasks off your plate. And it eases communication across the enterprise, as I mentioned when talking a little bit about HR and onboarding with IT. If there are messages that are delivered or updates that are delivered as comments within the tool itself, it takes a lot of the human work out of the process, speeds things up, and generally makes things easier. So make sure that you're thinking about all of these things when you're considering enterprise service management. Provide a greater visibility into the business. I can see, which is visible, but I can't talk, apparently. Provide greater visibility into business. What does that mean? Well, it means that the data that's produced within a tool is captured and is visible from various areas around the business. So if HR is using a tool and if IT is using a tool and it happens to be the same tool, perhaps there's some reports that you can run that combine data that lives within the tool. So people living within that realm that the tool is deployed in can have a better idea of what's going on throughout that ecosystem. Okay? Make sense? And now we have a survey for you about today's webinar. If you'd be so kind as to take our webinar survey and just spend a couple of minutes doing that. And meanwhile, what we will do is go through the Q&A, and we'll take your questions and see if we can't answer them. And I'll bet we can. We can certainly try anyway. So let's go to the Q&A. Okay. We have a question from Amy who says, who's driving the adoption of ESM? If not IT and tech support, how can IT prepare for the push from above? Or what is IT's role in the adoption of ESM? Well, actually, we have some of the answers to those questions in our survey, not just for IT, service management, not just for IT anymore, which is available in the resources. You can download that report. It's an HDI ITSM FUSA report. And essentially what we find is that most of the driver comes from high-level IT. So let's say the CIO. Some of the drivers come from other business units, but a smaller percentage. And I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head here, but you can get them from that report, so I suggest that you do download it. IT's role in adoption of ESM is really fundamental, again, because IT has the knowledge of the tool and a knowledge of the principles involved and can really help push the knowledge across the organization and assist other areas in adapting and adopting the frameworks or principles that they need to get through. That answers your question okay. Thank you for your question. Somebody just said cloud. Yes, cloud. Big buzzword. You betcha. Cloud is everywhere and in everything. And there's a great commercial currently on TV, and I don't even remember who it's for, but it's basically a business guy going through an airport and seeing, billboards for the cloud, and he gets a coffee mug that says cloud on it and all this stuff about the cloud. There are a lot of buzzwords that happen, and cloud is one of them. But there actually are some definitions. If you want to look at NIST, you can look at some definitions in NIST or in the HDI glossary if you're an HDI member. and you can see the types of cloud and what that means really. But essentially, there's kind of a goof going around. It's a bunch of times it's been posted on Facebook, and it says cloud really means it's on somebody else's computer, and essentially that's what it is. Next question, is there any particular advantage to choosing either on-premises or SaaS for enterprise service management versus just IT service management? That's an interesting question, and I think I will toss that one to Kevin. Kevin, have you seen people talking about or heard people talking about any particular advantages to choosing on-premises or cloud delivery for ESM as opposed to ITSM?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a great point to discuss. In fact, a fun and a point to discuss over dinner, over a beer or a glass of wine. We talk to a lot of clients about this, and I think the thing to understand is cloud has gotten a lot of attention and a lot of the headlines in the market for the past 5 or 6 years, and has certainly had an impact on the shape of the enterprise service management markets. The key is it really taking a look at your own business and asking yourself a few questions, because every organization is different, and the fact is that cloud is not for everybody, and for that matter, premise is not for everybody. So just a few things to consider, Roy, if I could, a few things to highlight.
Sure.
Cost is an issue, and you need to understand the total cost of ownership of any solution you're looking at, and even looking more deeply, understand if you want to apply CapEx or OpEx budget to investing in this solution. CapEx, of course, would fit the premise model better, and OpEx would fit the cloud SaaS model better. And some companies make their decisions solely on that single issue, is CapEx versus OpEx. And that's often a discussion between the CIO and the CFO, for example. But understand that. The second thing to understand, and a question to ask yourself, is how ready are you for out-of-the-box? How ready are you for out-of-the-box processes? And if you're ready for out-of-the-box, that would help in enterprise service management. That would make you a little more suited for cloud, because that's really the emphasis in cloud, is cloud applications can be configured, but the level of configuration and customization is not what it would be with an on-premise solution, because you're in complete control of that. So if you're ready for out of the box and you want to go out of the box, well, that would be one factor that would lean toward cloud. If you're highly unique, you have a highly unique business, you need a high level of configuration and customization that would lean you toward a premise solution. And then the only other thing I would highlight is take a good look at your infrastructure. Take a good look at the location of your users, how distributed are those users, and then what is your IT capacity and your infrastructure in those locations. If you have good, strong IT capability, you have good, strong administrators, you have quality infrastructure, app servers and data servers, then you're probably more capable of deploying a premise solution. If you're looking to divest of that infrastructure, or you have highly distributed users in many locations that don't have the local infrastructure or administration support, then that might be a better fit for cloud. But in general, enterprise service management is more distributed. It is bringing the application to more non-IT users, and so that is part of why cloud has grown so much, is more aligned with enterprise service management versus traditional just IT service management. So I hope that helps. Great question. Thanks, Roy.
Yeah, it's a good question. And thanks. It's a great answer, too. And I'd just like to kind of jump off of that answer and say that, you mentioned your organization's capabilities to adopt the tool out of the box. And that's exceedingly important. As I mentioned, the people section is one that often gets ignored. But if your organizational maturity isn't such that you can fit into the tool, then we get into that shoehorning situation that I mentioned. You're trying to make processes that don't fit the tool fit the tool. And that is always a problem. And you have people bypassing the tool, bypassing the processes, not following the steps correctly, not updating the information correctly, whatever it happens to be. And what you wind up with is more or less a disaster, simply because your organizational capabilities and the capabilities of the tool don't match up. And so that's really important. I'm glad you mentioned that, Kevin. Thank you. Next question. I said that HDI Research showed that almost half of the organizations you surveyed had no plans to adopt service management outside of IT. If the benefits are real, can you explain that? Well, not really, except that I can say that organizations may not be ready for it. Their particular organization may not be copacetic, may not be simpatico with the idea of adapting enterprise service management. They may be in a line of business that doesn't lend itself. They may not have those different business units. It may be a question of the organizational size. If they're very small, perhaps their processes are adapted already with that size in mind. They have a homegrown solution that works, whatever it happens to be. So there's lots and lots of reasons why an organization may not adopt enterprise service management. Good question, though. Also mentioned that it's advantageous to use existing tools when expanding service management into areas outside of IT. Can you talk more about any potential pitfalls? I think I might have covered that a little bit when I talked about being careful of how processes differ among business units. So let's take a look at HR quickly. HR basically with case management, which is another method of service management. If you look at some information around the web on case management or case plus service management, basically something has to happen, like somebody needs to get hired, or somebody files a complaint, or somebody falls down on the ice in the parking lot, and then something happens. There are processes, again, behind the scene that make something else happen and provide a resolution. So from 30,000 feet, that looks very similar. But when you think about the fact that you're dealing with people's lives here, there's a whole different level of consequences for the way things are done. And there may be legal requirements, compliance requirements, confidentiality requirements, all kinds of things involved with HR that are not involved with IT or not involved in customer service. So if you try to get a tool that handles both of those, just make sure that you have your bases covered, again. So potential pitfalls using a tool that doesn't allow for that kind of level of confidentiality and compliance that you might have in an area like finance or HR. Okay, simple enough. Okay. And I think we're coming to the end of our time together here. I feel like I should be singing the Carol Burnett theme, but I won't voice myself upon you. Let's just take a look at what's coming up next in HDI webinars. And Customer Service Week happens October 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we have a great lineup: Rayanne Bruno, Julie Moore, and Mary Cruz. 3 great speakers with great information to give you for Customer Service Week. 3 days in a row, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Have lunch with your team and get some great tips on customer service skills that you can apply at 2 o'clock after lunch or whatever time it is where you are. So come see 3 women who really know what they're talking about in terms of customers. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you to Heat Software. Thanks for speaking with us today, Kevin, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.